Hello everyone, this is Mr. Navratil here. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the next level in our Onshape series. This is going to be the phone stand. So this is going to add a couple different elements into our previous levels. We are going to be doing a little bit of tracing just to get the form factor for the stand itself. We're also going to need to add in an image so that we can trace that out. We're going to be using the fillet tool to round over some corners and then obviously to extrude this out as well. So let's go ahead and get started. On your dashboard, you're going to hit Create on the top and we'll hit Document. We can simply just call this the phone stand and we'll hit the Create button. We'll give it a second for it to pop up for us. And as always, we are going to hit the Sketch tool here and we're going to find the front plane. We're going to click there, add in our digital piece of paper, and then we can go ahead and hit the front view on our view cube. Now, the drawing for the phone stand can be found on the Google Classroom assignment. So all you have to do is go to that assignment and hit the download button on that image. And as we have done in previous levels, we're going to add that image in. So we're going to come up to the little arrow next to the document thing there, and we'll hit Insert Image. Again, if you cannot see this import button, please make sure that you hit the full screen button on your Chromebook, if that is what you're using. So we're going to hit import. I'm going to go and find that phone stand image and I'll hit OK, open. And then we're simply going to click here. We're going to click on the origin once, come up and click again. So if this was something that we wanted to actually make to 3D print as a functional phone stand, it would be important to make sure that we have the right size. So right off the bat, all we really have to do is dimension one of these size of the actual phone stand itself. So I'm going to double click here and we'll take a look at our original sketch, and we created a dimension that made this 3 inches tall. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to hit the dimension tool. I'm going to click on the bottom dot here and the top dot, and we are simply setting the height of this phone stand at 3 inches. And that does keep everything else actually in its own aspect ratio, so we're good there. Now, the first step is simply just to trace over the outside edge. So instead of using the spline for these straight lines, let's go ahead and use the line tool, the top left. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to click there, come down, and I can click on this edge, and I'll come over, and I'll click on this corner. We'll go up, and we will click there. Now, it's still kind of asking us to continue drawing a line. So to get out of that, all you need to do is simply hit the escape button on your keyboard, the top left button. To finish off the tracing, we can use the spline tool, which is here. I'm going to click. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then we can carefully trace over the outside edge. So I'm going to just kind of click along. If you hit a corner, make sure that you're clicking a couple times like that. And we're going to try and get this curve nice as we go up. And we'll get towards the top here. Now remember, when you're using the spline tool, it's very important that you try and find the actual last dot here and line it up so that we can complete the loop. And as before, it wants to keep going, but we have completed the loop, so I'm just going to hit the escape button on my keyboard. So you should have the outside tracing of this, but if we look at the part, you'll notice that it has kind of a hollowed out section in here. And to do that, all we need to do is just draw an inner tracing that's relatively close to the outer tracing. So for the straight lines, that's easy for us. All we need to do is use the offset tool, which is up here. It's next to the little scissors, and we're going to click on offset. Now to create an offset of a straight line, you do need to click on the line itself. We're going to tell the program, instead of going this way, I'm going to click on this arrow, we'd like to go the other way. We can hit enter, but we don't want 0.25. We're looking for 0.075, and that should give us a good offset there. Now the offset tool is still chosen. I'm going to click on this line. Again, click on the arrow to go the other direction, click enter, and then 0.075, enter. And we have one more here, other direction, enter, 0.075, and enter. So that's good. Gives us the offset for the straight lines. Now, this is where the creativity kind of comes in a little bit and the art portion of using the spline tool. We can't really create an offset of this complex curve, so we're going to have to try and trace it as best as we can. So I'm going to use the spline tool again. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and all you need to do is try and stay about that distance away from the outer edge for your whole tracing here. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but we're going to try and keep that same 0.075 distance away. So I'm going to trace up here, trace there, around this corner, and up and over, and then I can complete the loop. Now it's going to keep wanting to draw. You just hit the escape button there. Good. The last thing is we do have this little extra line that we need to get rid of. You notice that this one connected up over here perfectly fine, but we do need to get rid of a couple of these little lines. So to do that, we're just going to use the trim tool, these little pair of scissors here. So I'll click on trim. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to simply click on the lines we don't need. So I'll zoom out. Let's go down here. I'm going to click on this one, on this little line, and then we just have this corner. So 1 and 2. And that is the profile for the phone stand. So we're all set drawing. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark on our sketch. I'm going to change our view so we can see this a little better. And let's go ahead and extrude this. So we're going to click on extrude. I'm going to zoom in and make sure I'm clicking on the right profile, which is that outside profile. And now we need to figure out how far do we need to come out to actually make this a functioning phone stand. So if we look at the example and I double click on our extrusion here, we did come out 2 inches. So I'm going to click on the depth and I'm going to change that to 2 and hit enter and the green check mark. So there you go. We could potentially use this as is. This would be probably functional as is, but let's make it look a little bit more official using some of the other tools that we've learned. One of those being the fillet tool, which is here. So I'm going to click on fillet. And what I want to do is I want to click on these outside edges. So I'm going to click there, the bottom line here, this line, and I can swing around to the other side, or you can use the view cube to help you do that. And I'm also going to click on these edges as well. And if we go back to the example, let's just take a look and see how we did with our radius, which is 0.05. So that's already by default 0.05 for us. If it's something else, please change it to that, otherwise it might not work. And then we could start clicking on the other edges here that might work for us. So that one, maybe this edge here. Yeah, that's looking better. And then when you're all set and you've clicked on all of the edges that you need, you can go ahead and hit the green check mark. So right off the bat, that does look a little bit more official when you round those corners over. Now you notice I also added in another fillet to help with the stability of keeping the phone stand actually intact, which is this really large fillet here. So if we double click, we can get that dimension, which was 0.75. So let's do that with ours. I'm going to hit the fillet tool again, but I'm going to click on this edge, or this line rather, here. Now this is already set to 0.75. We could change it to something different to make it smaller or bigger, but for our purposes to keep this intact, let's go with 0.75 and we'll hit the green check mark. Awesome, so we're almost there. The last thing is to add your own little personal touch to the phone stand. And to do that, we're just going to add some text on the back. So if we look at our example, you'll notice on the back here, it does say phone stand, and we did engrave that into it. So yours does not have to say phone stand. You could pick something else that you'd rather 3D print or engrave rather on the backside. Obviously, as long as it's appropriate for school. But I'm just going to go with phone stand, pretty normal. So let's go to ours. We're going to change the view a little bit. We're going to hit the sketch tool. We're going to click on the back of our phone stand here, and we're going to change our view. Now it's at this point we can just add in text. You can find images to bring in and trace. You could bring in images actually of different types of text to get different fonts, because as we use our text tool, which is right here, this little letter, and we kind of click and drag where we want to draw, You notice that Onshape really doesn't have a whole lot of different options for the font. And that's just because it needs to have kind of a native understanding of how to extrude these, as opposed to if you go to a Google Doc, you'll have hundreds of different choices for font. The only caveat with that is you do have to take a screenshot of the text, bring it in, and then kind of meticulously trace over it. So for our purposes, let's just go ahead and change it to, let's see, Aramo sounds good. And I'm going to type in phone stand, and we'll hit the green check mark. Now, yours might come in much larger than we're going to need it, and that is an easy solution for us. We're simply just going to change the dimension of this. So I'm going to hit the dimension tool. I'm going to click on the bottom corner here and the top corner here. And instead of doing 1.2 inches, let's try out and see what like 0.5 looks like. Okay, that's getting closer. It's obviously still too long this way. To fix that, we could hit the escape button and we could right click on our text and hit edit text. And instead of this being on one line, if you go in between the text here and hit the enter button, it will add it to the next line. And we can kind of click and drag the corner and see if that fits for us. Okay, it's very, very close. I think we need to come down just a little bit more in size. So I'm going to double click on our dimension here. Let's change that to 0.4 and see if that works for us. Yes, it does. Okay, so I can click and drag on the corner and kind of get this centered where we need it. Perfect. And once you have your text or your images traced or whatever you'd like to put on the back, you can go ahead and hit the green check mark. And then all we need to do is simply engrave that into our 3D model. And to do that, as usual, we're going to use the extrude tool. I'm going to click on the text itself. And instead of coming out of the model like this, as cool as that looks, we are going to hit remove. We don't want to go all the way through. That's going to cause issues if we were to make this model in real life. So instead of going all the way through, we're going to change the depth, as usual, to 0.05. And that should just kind of engrave it into it. When you're all set, we're going to hit the green check mark and take a look. Everything looks good. And that is how to create the phone stand in Onshape.